Call to order for the Eldridge Electric and Water Utility Board meeting. Today is November 5th. It's now 5 p.m. City, roll call please.
Peterson. Here. Gooding.
Here.
Patovich. Here. Anderson.
Present.
Brisley.
Here. Hey, do we have any public comment tonight? Yes, Craig.
Couple things. I mean, I started last night with the council. You guys are all there. I just want to reiterate the fact that, keep moving on the bill, getting the e-bills funded. Just so you guys can pay some of those bills you discussed last night, because you're looking for extra funds and extra bills. So just like to see that move forward and keep moving forward the right way. I know it's easy to do as I did it. But anyway, just a thought there. So, and then, on the, looking at your agenda now, you got the Tyler Technology billing. This is more for you, Sadie. Is there an upgrade or extra line for the postcards? Because I know you always had trouble putting. Because I know you guys talked about sewer water fund later for so you can put that in software with that's part of it. I know we talked about it in the past.
Yeah, that I'm not sure.
I would, I'd check into that before you pay it. So that's my thought there. Be able to add extra lines to that billing software. That's part of it. And then that was about it tonight, so.
Thank you, Craig.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Yeah, my name's Chad Jennings. I live over in the Fulner's division, off South 26th Avenue, kind of by Black Hawk Trail.
Okay.
I've got a little septic problem issue. My septic's starting to go bad. I've been working with Russ's Trucking to put a system in. I've had some soil samples done, but they're telling me I cannot put a traditional system in. So basically, they're looking at a sand filter. Apparently, that through my backyard, there was supposed to be some tiling. Russ looked for it. They cannot find any tiling. I'm just wondering, is there any sewer lines or who I would talk to about to find the closest sewer lines, or maybe I could hook into them? I do believe there's a utility easement on the backside of my property in the neighbor's yard. I think there's 15 feet or so. If I could jump over and put a tile over there, because I'm getting kind of some negative feedback from my neighbor that I would have to run through his yard, which there are no easements on his property.
Okay, so Nevada, is that something you can maybe speak towards best resource for?
Yep, so sewer's actually not governed by the utility board, so they are part of, they go under the city council, so they're a different department. But we can get you in contact with the public works director who oversees the sewer, and they can work with our assistant city administrator to check and see where the nearest lines are and what we can, if there would be a possible way to assist you with that problem. Can I get contact information from you?
Yes, you can. Chadwick Jennings, phone number 563-343-5973.
You said Felmer's edition?
The folders, yeah, off of South 26th Avenue,
Sure, I understand.
3219 South 26th. The old Stillwell house.
I'll talk to the public works tomorrow. Public Works Director tomorrow, his name's Tony, and our Assistant City Administrator Jeff, and one of them will reach out to you and we'll see if we can set up some time for them to come take a look and talk to you and get the details of the issue.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
Something you
find
can
a
do.
cheaper solution. Start getting pretty expensive, where I was looking at, $20,000 job, now we're looking at 30. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
And it's working, it's just an old one that's outdated, and I'm like, the old one's good, why do we gotta do all this other stuff? But I guess it's something to do with the soil
Okay,
inspection, so.
yeah, they'll be able to give you the location and everything out there for what we have as far as our infrastructure goes and whether or not there would be a possibility for a connection to that and what that would look like for you.
That'd be excellent, I appreciate it.
Have you pulled your map yet from Scott County?
No, I have not.
That might be something helpful that they're gonna want anyway to look at.
Rents might have it,
Okay.
yeah. Who would I go through for
We'll be able
my,
to pull it up too.
You guys can too.
Yep, and we'll have our mapping out for that area too, so we'll pull it, before they call you, they'll pull that parcel. There's a look too, so.
that's all I had, so I'll let you guys do it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, nice meeting you.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Moving on to number 3. Do I have a motion for approval of tonight's agenda?
Motion.
Motion by Patovich,
Second.
second by Peterson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Number 4. Approval of the utility board meeting minutes from October 22nd, 2024. Do I have a motion approving?
Motion.
Motion by Patovich,
Second.
second by Peterson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Number 5. Financial 5A, consideration to approve the bills payable. Everybody had a chance to look at that? Is there any questions that we need clarifications on?
I didn't have any.
I think that's pretty routine.
Good to me. Martha? Hey, do I have a motion to approve? Motion. Motion by Hamilton, second.
Second.
Second by Patovich. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. 5B, consideration to approve bond council engagement agreement for the amount not to exceed $6,000 for Ayers and Cooney PC for the $150,000 Series 2024 SRF D&D loan. Any discussion on this? Any clarification needed? Is something, Nevada, maybe you can kind of help us with a little bit here?
Yep, I did reach out to Lenny after we spoke last week, just to get some guidance from him or any recommendation. He didn't necessarily have a recommendation either way. He said if the cash flow in the water department is strong, then, it would be fine to hold off and not do a loan right now, because it's likely we'll need one for a larger project soon, but the applications are super easy to fill out and you can roll them into a loan together through the state revolving fund. So, it's kind of at the discretion of the board. He didn't have guidance one way or another. Originally, my thought was that it wouldn't really be necessary for this project at 115,000. But with it being 0% interest and being able to break that out with the current condition, I think, of the water department funds and some of the projects that have come up that weren't budgeted, for the water department that are important and can't really afford to push them out another fiscal year or two. And we know that we've got some big ones coming down the pipeline too, after this report, is finished. I think it doesn't hurt to move forward with it. There is a $6,000, not to exceed $6,000, from the bond council, because they have to do all of the proceedings and documents to be able to get that bond, approved and all of the public hearings and everything. But, that's gonna be with any loan that we have.
And this
so.
was for 3 years, I recall, right? Or did they ask us that?
I
Or
don't know. I was thinking 3 years, but I couldn't.
I thought Lenny
figure out where
said it
got
was
the
3
number.
years,
So I don't know.
but then I don't know if he confirmed that or.
And I can clarify that too. I have that number in my head and
So this was for the 16th Avenue water tower, right? The East Water Tower?
this is for the preliminary engineering report. So there's
Okay.
money budgeted for the reconditioning project for the water tower. We've got 900,000 set aside for that.
So I guess that was my initial understanding, and maybe I missed something, is for the 900,000 or 850 to 900,000 that we were looking at for that water tower. I thought the state program, the 0% would have applied to that. And it just, to me, it seems like we're kind of on that border for $150,000 loan. It's 0%, which is great, but we're gonna be paying upwards not to exceed $6,000 to obtain it. So now we're kind of paying interest up front as opposed to, and that's, is there any opportunity if we don't use that loan for the initial study, that could be used for the water tower work itself?
So we can't use it on the reconditioning project because that project doesn't qualify for 0% funding. It's considered maintenance. So they did check out some different funding opportunities and we just didn't qualify for this particular project. It's something that's to be expected and that is routine every 15 years, 20 years. So it wouldn't qualify for that and we would have the funds, that loan is drawn up for that specific project or project-based funds.
Sure.
But if you did the loan, you could still apply for another 0% loan on a qualifying project. It wouldn't hold you back from getting additional funds on a different project.
So if you did that though, are you gonna have to pay the bond twice? If you applied for a different one, you're gonna have to do a separate bond still, aren't you?
Yes, you would have to, for all of them, they would have to prepare the paperwork for any type of financial loan or bond. So even if you did them together at the same time, you'd still need separate paperwork for each of those loans. So you'd still be paying the bond counsel to do all of those legal documents.
So not to exceed 6,000, if it came in at 5,000, for 150,000 would be probably upwards of 3% for that first year. So I mean, is it worth it for us to keep that money freed up to pay the,
I think
whatever?
at this stage, like with what we know we have coming up. And we don't know what else is gonna pop up in some of these, that would be a good idea. And we can pay this off early if something was
Yeah, there's no prepayment penalty.
No, but the money we put up front
for the bond.
for the
For the
bond
bond.
Yeah,
Yeah,
would be spent.
Yeah.
And that's,
that route.
Either take it out of the bond amount, or do they charge us the 6,000?
I believe we paid the 6,000 separately. We get a bill from the attorney for that. It may be something you could wrap up into it, but you guys have general legal fees, funds set aside that are more than enough to cover this and that you're not gonna use on loans and bonds throughout the fiscal year.
When you break the $6,000 out, it's 1.3% over the 3 years.
it is 3 years, but
Yeah.
are we sure it was 3 years or do we clarify?
I have
that?
to clarify. That. I couldn't figure out where it
I
came.
mean, Lenny was pretty sure about it, but he was gonna look at it. Or he was gonna talk to, I forget what the gentleman's name was, but he did say 3 years on it. So we'll wanna confirm that.
Other thing to consider is that 0%, even if you're paying that cost, that even if it was over 2 years and you took that money and put it into a properly set up program for the T-bills, think of that
Yeah.
ROI that you could have over those 24, 36 months by borrowing that money at 0% and taking that cash and investing it.
Yeah,
Sure.
So, and I did provide, current budgets for the electric and water, where they're at in this current fiscal year compared to, what's budgeted for each of those lines. And then I also gave you a copy of the full fiscal year budget. So, you can see that broken down and any notes that go along with any of those accounts too. So, we're over already in some areas in water. And the reserves are not necessarily where we would like them to be. They're not dangerously low, but we would like to see those a little higher, especially with some of the work that we've got coming up. But we do have the cost of service and revenue rate analysis being done by PFM, so that will help us to figure out what we're spending to treat and distribute the water, so we can charge accordingly, and then what additional rate increase might be needed to fund some of these bigger projects without having to go bond or deed loans. That would be helpful too.
Okay.
and again, we haven't done a rate increase since, 2023?
There was one, yes,
So then prior to that, it
last
was
year, but it was supposed to be back in 2010. They voted to approve it and it never got implemented, so it had been,
Since they wasn't like 13 years.
Yeah, it was like
Last
13
year.
years without, so.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, we're probably undercharging, unfortunately.
yeah, there's some catch up to do for sure, for the capital projects and just for the cost of providing the water has increased obviously over 10 years, 13 years, and one rate increase, over that 14 years isn't gonna be enough to cover what that cost of service would be.
Sure.
And the reserves are getting slowly depleted. no, for anything deficit or anything that goes over budget each fiscal year that would come out of reserves.
Any other discussion on this topic? Is there a motion to move forward to retain Ayers and Cooney for the service?
I'm fine with that as long as we can confirm that that's a 3-year loan. And go
Yeah.
ahead and,
It wouldn't make for. as
well,
far as
no,
Ayers,
that
it
part,
wouldn't.
no, yeah.
But yes, I can confirm the term of the loan with, Lenny tomorrow.
Was this something that we should table until next meeting? Or is this,
Yeah, that's completely up to you guys. We have to put notice in for public hearing, so we would have to know if it was going to be on the next meeting, because we have to send out the dates of those public hearings, and notify appropriately. That'll have to go in the newspaper, and it's gotta be a certain number of days before the meeting.
Okay.
So we just would need to know if that public hearing date is gonna change.
Let's table that. Make sure that everybody's on board with it.
all right, so a motion by Hamilton to table, second,
I'm not sure. Well,
I'm fine moving
can
forward.
we move forward with
Signing.
a caveat of knowing what our frame is? Like,
Yeah, if you give me, I mean, I just need direction on what term you would not wanna do the loan for, and what term you're looking for that you would proceed. So that I know if that answer comes back.
And it's 0%. I'm fine with a longer term than anything 3 and longer.
yeah,
but as a minimum, I think is a guideline, I think is what you're asking for.
Yeah,
whether
and I-
it's,
Yeah, I need to know.
I mean,
what
I'm
you guys
probably
would say no to.
positive it's 3 years, but I'm fine with that.
yeah, at 3 years at spacing that out, that gives us time to, you know,
Invest, as Ryan
Invest.
said, and do other things.
yes, or if we have to do an increase, I mean, we could make up for some of that and stuff, but if it's less than a 3-year loan, that's kind of putting the screws to some other things that we might need to do. And then again, we don't have time to recoup funds.
So if it's less than 3 years, we don't wanna move forward with the loan, we'll pay for it out of local funds for the report, because we've already approved the preliminary engineering report, it's already underway. So it would just be a matter of either paying for it with the funds that you have now, or approving the 0% interest loan. So if it's under 3 years, you don't wanna move forward with the loan. If it's 3 or over, we do.
I would,
What's the rate come out to at 2 years? Pretty quick with that.
%.
2%. I would say 2 years or more. I mean, ideally it's 3 or longer, but I mean.
even 2, we're coming out ahead.
Yes,
Not a huge difference.
yeah. Okay, so,
Just to recoup that one.
So if it's anything under 2 years, no. If it's anything 2 years or over, move forward.
yes, so I guess a motion to approve bond council engagement agreement for amount not to exceed 6,000 with Ayler and Cooney for the $150,000 Series 2024 SRF P and D loan. With the term to be a minimum of 24 months or greater. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Good.
Second.
Second by Adamich. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Okay. Next item. 5C, consideration to approve the upgrade to the Tyler Technologies billing software program from ERP Pro 9 to ERP Pro 10 at a one-time project cost of $21,780. Adam, would you have more information on that?
Yes, so recently, back in February, actually, we completed phase 1 of a kind of full migration of our billing and employee management system. So we went to a cloud-based management, and now the software that houses everything, that does all of our fund accounting and everything, is still kind of under that old platform. So we're gonna be moving over to a web-based platform that will be the same as what our, like administrative portal is for that system. So it'll be a lot more efficient. It's gonna provide a lot more reports that we don't have to go out and pay money for them to custom create. And just be able to get that information a lot sooner without having to pull a bunch of reports and then try and compile the numbers out of there. So it'll be a big benefit to the staff to being able to get that information together more quickly and being able to identify just smaller pieces of information without having to go to a full report. It was already planned, and the first phase was included in the budget, but this second phase, the one-time project cost, was not included in the budget, so I just wanted to bring it forward for approval. There is enough money to cover it between the electric and water, and there's the contingency fund line for unbudgeted items as well. So for a cost of $21,000, it can easily be covered in this fiscal year.
I believe, is that, did I read that? I should figure out where we pay 50% upfront and 50% once migration's over. Did I read that in here?
I think we worked it out with them to pay it at the end, because we were in a potential situation where we'd be crossing fiscal years during the migration, so I don't think we are paying anything upfront, even though we're in the same fiscal year, but typically it would be. I think we're paying it all once the migration is over, if I remember correctly. I can confirm for sure, but
Oh, here it is.
That's what I
Say,
recall.
we signed off, here it is, it's on that last page. Maybe have them correct that or just initial off if we put that in there.
yep.
And then do we know how often the software, we do updates on that and what that costs? Or is this all included? Or, I mean, obviously software is, as we know, 1 year could be 4,000.
Yep.
Next, it can go up based on employees, different variables of that.
So the phase that we just completed was an upgrade that resulted in higher annual costs. And we haven't done one, that might be the first time, you know, the first time that I know of, and we've had this software for a long time, that we've done an upgrade, so it's, I mean, not even every 3 to 5 years, I'd say we're looking at more in the 5 to 10 year, but when you would have to do that level of an upgrade. There are different upgrades, such as the one that we're doing for phase 2, that are just a one-time project cost, that have different reasoning for doing those upgrades. Maybe they offer more reports, which is what we're looking at now, or we have a time clock system that interfaces with this system. So those would be some other reasons we would potentially upgrade outside of that. But this software is made for municipal accounting, and so we don't have upgrades often that have a cost to us that aren't already built into our terms and conditions.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Do we have a motion to approve the upgrade to the Tyler Technology Billing Software to ERP Pro 10?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Patovich,
Second.
second by Peterson. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Okay, next item, number 6, Electric Department outages. Colin, how are we doing?
We had 2 outages the past couple weeks. On the 23rd, at 3:55 PM, got a call from 214 West Franklin Street, just around the corner here. No power. The cause was animal contact out here, that you tripped the fuse out here. They got a phase coming down the alley here. So, that was 6 customers were affected. We power's on at 4:15 PM. So,
Okay.
another one on the 28th. Gentleman called at 207 North 7th Street. He didn't have any power. So this gentleman actually has a private underground service going back up to our overhead lines back there. contractor that putting in conduit for fiber and ran across all three of his wires underground there. Did trip the transformer, so, 9 customers were affected total. We got the first 8 back on in the next half hour. Don't have to climb up in the rear lot pole there and disconnect his service so we can get everybody else back up and going first. And then we did have tools on hand while we were there. It was very shallow, so, and it was pretty well exposed already, so we just decided to get him back up and going. So he wasn't waiting all day for an electrician to come fix it, so we had him back on at 12:30, so he was out for about an hour, and the first 8 were out for about a half an hour, so.
Did it appear that was properly located?
What's that?
Was that properly, did it appear that it was properly located?
So we do our own locates. If it's a private service, I can't locate it because it falls on me, but,
Sure.
it was, so, it was not located, so.
Okay,
Just out of curiosity, that first one, I think you said it came in at what, 345,
355.
355. Was everybody gone for the day?
I just happened to be leaving town in the area, so all I had to do was go back and get the truck,
First,
so.
quick response and
Yeah.
fix, so.
Yep.
If you guys were gone, what would be normal time frame for a crew to be dispatched and then be on scene?
If I was home, I would have been here 10 minutes to get the truck, so it'd probably been another,
So not much more.
5-10 minutes maybe, so.
Nice.
Yep.
Time.
so with the other, the fiber upgrade that's been going on with the community, they have not been getting electric, locates?
They have.
Okay,
We do our own that we own. There's
Sure.
certain areas that if they had an overhead service, it's always been put in place as far as I've been here. My understanding that if they decided, this gentleman converted his service a while back, I think, that had been like maybe 6 years ago, 'cause
okay,
I did terminate it, but we didn't own the line there, so.
okay,
It's marked as private on our map, so I can't, since we don't own it, that's kind of per I-1 call. I can't really locate it because then the monkey's on our back if it does get broke.
sure, yeah, and that's what I just wanna make sure is, if we've got other, other fiber upgrades going on in the community, that we're making sure, because it sounds like this was fairly quick,
Yep.
easy, and probably not worth, going after, but, in the future, if it was located and they struck it, then it should be responsible. So, okay,
Yeah, we just decided in the moment, after we realized it was probably only a couple feet deep,
yeah,
a lot shallower than what we bury our lines, that we can just get this gentleman back up and going.
Do we have an ordinance on depth that if it is a private, that it needs to go? And legally?
Legally, electric service can be right at that 2-foot mark.
Yeah.
We do put ours right at maybe a little deeper, probably 30 inches or so.
Yeah.
So
Okay, I didn't know if.
to a certain point where
For
it is
code.
buried enough, then regulation, but then we're not as deep, so we're not digging a China to go back and fix it up, so.
In the event, yeah,
Yep,
no, 100%, okay,
better still follow NEC codes, so.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, just wanna make sure that it is not out of compliance, like,
Yeah.
that somebody didn't just renegade it. Okay,
so.
Okay, those were the outages, and then 6B, any other department updates you wanna share?
Yep, last week, me and the crew completed a full change out rear lot on 604 Prairie Vista Drive. Took a little bit being in a backyard situation and stuff like that, so, and then, the guys have been, we got another service ran, so we're still caught up on any new builds, and we got some more coming up, so. We also been kind of doing some tree trimming and getting some stuff figured out. I might have. We're getting a list together just for some stuff to hit, here and there that are kind of getting close, just from this year's growth, so.
Sure.
But our, next year, we will do our complete, tree trimming vegetation inspection, so then the contractors will come out winter of 25 to do the entire system, so.
That pole change out, that was on the list. That wasn't something new.
That was on our list from from this year's IUB inspection, that we ourselves found it deficient. And
Yeah.
we were very correct when we pulled the stump out, so, yeah.
Good.
How often do you guys do the overall survey of growth and stuff? Is that something just
That's every other year.
every other year? Okay,
Yep.
for budgetary wise, just to make sure that,
Yep,
because that's gone up to do that, I'm sure, in cost over the last couple of years.
it depends on who we get here, every year for the past, I think, 3 times, Advantage have done it at quite a bit of a lower cost than
Okay.
other bids that we receive. So,
Yeah.
yep.
Because we've had trees removed, got quotes for stuff, and I'm like, you know, it just feels like it goes up. So just for when we budget for financials, just to make sure we pad that a little bit.
Okay. Anything else?
That about does it. We're still rocking and rolling, so.
Excellent.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you, Colin.
Moving on to number 7, Water Department, 7A, water main breaks. Anything to report?
Yeah, we had one on the 31st. It was at 311 Diamond Drive. Sadie got the call and it was around like 9:30 or 10 o'clock. So we were there at 10, called an emergency locates. We had to give them a 2-hour window to be able to do those emergency locates. So about noon, we broke ground and we were pretty much cleaned up by 3. So all in all, 5 hours. But in that time, we turned the water down, so we're not having a huge water loss. But, big shout out to everybody in the city, especially electric guys. I called Colin and I was like, what are you doing this afternoon? He's like, I think I know what I'm doing. So, big thanks to the electric guys. Public Works also stepped up, helped us. They went and got rock and sand for us. Wastewater guys, everybody showed up and offered their help. So big team effort, and I appreciate everybody for that.
What type of failure was it?
So I might have talked to you guys about this before, but we have red clay soil here, which is highly corrosive to ductile and cast. So we experience more blowouts than we do breaks.
Okay.
This one was a blowout. It was about the size of a golf ball. So, kind of a transition for that conversation is to talk about plastic water main, which we can discuss that later too, but.
Yeah, okay,
So yeah, that's main breaks.
okay.
What size line?
Hey,
That was the only one?
that was the only one. I guess we can add, the estimated water loss is like an overestimation because I've assumed for about 30 minutes to an hour, it was running full blast. Then we turn it down, and I would say it's anywhere between 80 and 150,000 gallons was lost. And then 8 customers affected.
Okay. Moving on to 7B, water test results. Information on that?
I have not gotten anything back for October results. So that might be at the next meeting where I can give you October results as far as vaccines. Other than that, I think we sent a calcium test in that has not returned for Langmuir saturation index. That information is going to ISU, so we can get the scale forming factor of our water. So that we can see if there's anything that we can do to start combating that.
Okay.
So just waiting on results at this point.
Sure. Okay. Next item, 7C. Consideration to approve purchase of PPE for the water department to include boots and waders. The amount not to exceed $400 from clothing allowance fund line. Somebody in the department needs boots and waders?
Yeah, that would have been nice to have on Thursday. But yeah, the waiters are a big help, so that's just one of the line items that we probably poke into the PPE portion, so guys aren't soaking wet, especially in the winter time when your boots get full of water. It's not very fun, so
Sure.
waiters are a huge help for us.
Okay. Any Any other discussion on that? Any concerns? We have a motion approving the boots and waders, not to exceed 400.
I just have
Motion,
one question.
go ahead.
Where are we getting this stuff from? Or do we get some different quotes, or do you have a certain
So
kind you like?
the boots probably come in Tyson's. The waders, there's not very many, like other than Dick's, there's not very many places that do like a sport grade where you can actually move around in them. So Dick's is most likely the avenue we'll go for waders, which it's hard to find anything for less than $100. You know? Especially because we require something that you're able to move in. I've blown out plenty of waders because you can't bend down and move around in them. So we have to kind of find something that's
Looks like
flexible.
one with the neoprene,
We almost need like a wetsuit.
yeah.
So,
Some of those lying around, we can throw you in.
yeah, that'd be a big one.
The memo, in the packet does give some ranges for some of the items that'll be considered for PPE. It's the same situation we just had recently with electric, and we are getting ready to go into negotiations, so we'll try to firm up those policies a little bit, so there's some clear definition on what clothing allowance and what is considered PPE, so that we can budget that a little bit clearer too.
Okay. Okay, for 7C, do we have a motion to approve the purchase of the boots and waders not to exceed $400? Motion by Peterson, second,
Second.
second by Patovich. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Alright,
Nay? Ayes have it. Okay, next item. 7D, discussion and consideration to add a full-time employee to the water department staff.
So, I sent out some information on department wages, what the breakdowns were, where you are currently, for your budget for each department. And then I sent out some job descriptions too, because one of them that, was interesting was in the city administrator profile when they put out the organization kind of setup and how it's run and how many employees there are. There has been talk for quite a while of having 3 employees in the water department, and that profile from, I think it was written a couple of years ago, speaks to having 3 full-time water department employees. So they had it built into the budget, I think for a couple of years. It just hasn't gone down that route to actually hiring someone. But I think also the other thing to consider is the different setup and structure that we're currently looking at, where we have a superintendent in each of those departments. When we move towards that role with water, right now we only have 2 people. So whoever's doing that kind of field administrative management type role in the water department, that only leaves them 1 person to work with for doing rounds, and it's a small staff anyways to be able to go out and handle main breaks and things on our own without having to call in extra vendors and contractors, which costs more money too. So really building a stable department. So the water department, where it's currently at, is about $42,000 over budget for wages. And then in that same database, I did put some different positions that have been discussed, or some different positions that may potentially come up in that fiscal year and how those would impact it. So you see a negative for the water department in that information I put together, but that is considering every possible position that could potentially come up in this fiscal year. And even if that happened, there's overflow into the part-time and overtime. There's extra wages built in there. The reality is that you'll still probably end $20,000 over budget with wages in that department, in adding a full-time water
With
treatment.
this addition, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think there's been some discussion perhaps on restructuring, administrative management role, and I know some people's names have been brought up, and so this would be the opportunity, I believe, to secure a full-time employee for the necessary training if we make this shift towards the more the manager or the, you know, whatever we call it at that time.
Yeah, so, the board had already kind of come to a consensus and earlier this year to go with the superintendent role in each department. We have Colin is our foreman in the line, or in the electric department. Right now with water, we just have 2 employees. Keegan is about to get his grade 2 in treatment, so he's already the responsible operator in charge. But moving him into a superintendent role, so we've got, kind of a manager that specializes in each of those departments, leaves him only with that 1 staff. But at the same time, putting either one in a kind of general manager would take them out of those already kind of short-staffed or minimally staffed departments. But you still need someone to do all of that administrative work, and trying to put that on them while they're managing actively departments and still working in those fields and trying to build that stability. That administrative work is gonna have to be done by a different, individual. And so having that manager role there gives you a nice stable base for having 3 people that can effectively run and operate those departments efficiently, and save you guys money. Rather than having a general manager, over both of the departments that is maybe actively working in one. It takes away that attention from both the departments that need that.
Sure.
To be able to stay up to date with all of the compliance reporting, because there's a lot of budgeting. Electric has a lot of compliance reporting, a lot of tax reporting that has to be done. And water has a lot of annual reporting that needs to be done and kept up with too. So there's a lot going on, and it'd
And they're
be,
smiling big like they wanna.
it'd be really, it'd be a lot to put that on one of them that are working out in the field and that are managing those operations daily. But if there is somebody that needs to do that administrative role, which is very demanding and time consuming for sure.
Other discussion on this?
I mean, I kind of feel like, you know, you guys are doing a great job, and like, let's assist you with some staff and stuff. I just feel like I wanna look at a few things, you know, like the budget numbers and stuff, and make sure that, you know, I mean, we don't have to make a decision right now, but I feel like if we can look at that and make sure that, like, what exactly, like, do you need to be hired in, you know, somebody that can help keep things running, you know, and, you know, especially if we can get somebody with water experience and not have to start fresh. Like, where does that come in on our budget, you know? Not to bring somebody in at the bottom and then start them fresh, train them and do all that stuff. We still have to pay for training and stuff, but if they come in with water certifications already, that'd be great. That'd be, you know, so but that's gonna cost us more money either way, so.
And I've had both sides of the spectrum
Yeah.
express interest in working in this field, so it can go either way.
Yeah,
What do you feel?
Prefer? Preferred is somebody with a little bit of experience. It doesn't have to be somebody that's just as certified as I am.
Right.
It could be somebody that's in this kind of realm where they're either working towards their certifications, they might have one of them, they might have 2 of them, or they have some operator experience. So I would prefer somebody that can kind of have a little bit of that
They
experience.
have that experience and then you can mentor them with.
And then
Yeah.
We can just,
almost like an apprenticeship program within,
yeah, get them acclimated to our system.
right,
And then that does free time up for that managerial side of running the department. So then it's like you're having 2 guys like we are right now that can always be around.
Sure, because you're gonna need a day off once in a while. Well, seriously.
what?
Yeah.
Everybody has vacation time,
Yeah.
everybody.
We've got
You
people
call in sick.
many hours and a phone call when.
But you know, you could be sick for a week, you could,
Yeah,
heaven forbid, you get the car, I mean, you can't go to work for a month.
Yeah.
You know, so you gotta be,
Keegan's coming to work that.
Since you're not
well, put
replacing.
him in a wheelchair and roll him in.
I always try my hardest to never miss.
Since you're not replacing somebody, but you're adding a new position.
Right.
Would you say that, an onboarding time would probably be best in the winter months because you can kind of do the training and soft start ramping up into the
So that's
busy season.
kind of why I brought it up now, is because we are coming into our slow period, and that's why they can get acclimated to the treatment side of it, where they can be in the operations of doing backwashing, your daily testing, going out in the field and pulling samples, doing vaccines, like our myriad of tests. So right now is a good time to have somebody come in so they can learn the day-to-day stuff.
Winter main breaks, that'd be fun.
Right, and
Yeah.
and winter's always good for some.
Yeah.
So, that's the other thing is too, is also an operator's gonna have experience with winter breaks, so. Yeah, winter's a good time to bring somebody on, just because we are slow, you can. Have
Maybe educate them
a
a little
bit
bit
more
more.
attention to that.
And all of your water classes and stuff like that you're going to for these testing and stuff, do they offer them more in the winter because there is some more downtime, or is it online?
So our realm is shifted a ton towards webinars and online. Rather than physical classes, there's still tons of physical classes, but the actual. Like heavy time for classes is spring, summer, fall,
Okay,
just as you do have that easier ability to travel. And that's why it's nicer to have 4 guys on staff, because then somebody can go to a class
mhm,
and it's not detrimental to the department.
right.
So,
But during the winter, they could take the online classes to catch up, do a couple things and
and
get paid.
I fully intend to start taking classes too, because after I pass my grade twos, I'm gonna enroll in a college course to get my grade threes.
Okay,
So,
So it'd be safe to say that we could do the application process and get that started while we're still reviewing the budget.
Do we need to allocate this before we advertise it?
Yeah, we wouldn't wanna, put out applications or start accepting applications unless we were gonna hire for sure. So we'd want approval from the board before we would move forward with that process. I mean, I would anticipate when that time comes, if that is the direction that the board goes, and especially because Keegan's already, received interest from people, I think that process would be
it's gonna be
pretty
quicker.
quick.
Okay,
I mean, we just had that opening for the utility billing clerk and we just posted it as open until filled, and we interviewed the applicants that were qualified as they came in, and we filled it in a week.
Okay.
And so there's, I mean, when you already know you have interested applicants, it can be a pretty quick process.
Sure.
Now we just need to get you up there with your work.
yeah, one hurdle at a time. Okay, so I guess my holdup was to figure out, you know, at what level you wanna bring them in and at what pay grade, you know, they're gonna enter and stuff, but if we're gonna just open it up and see what we get and then go from there, as long as I think we have it in the budget, you know, to cover, you know, if somebody comes in with the same levels, you know, like, great, but, you know, depending on, I just wanna make sure we can pay and then reevaluate when we do our financials
You
next.
put in there, depending on experience.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whatever it is, X to X between these 2 points.
Yeah.
And depending on your experience, where you fall in.
That's all set by their collective bargaining agreement, because they're union positions, so, it's set for the grade of certification that you have, or if you don't have one, there's a starting wage.
Alright.
And then it's set, you can't really negotiate that wage
Right,
until they get into like more of a managerial or supervisor role.
Gotcha.
I think there's definitely a need.
oh, yeah,
And there's an opportunity, it sounds like, because, you
yeah,
know, you have interest at this time, so, again, we don't always have that luxury, especially with the electric department, so that might be the best time to strike.
yeah.
Honestly, wait, no one.
I know, I don't know how to make that more attractive of a thing for somebody to come in, you know?
It's a tough. And you're looking for a full-blown journeyman, it's a tough,
Sure.
it's a tough aspect for.
It's not a lot out there, is there?
No,
Yeah,
especially if everybody's loves where they're at, so.
yeah,
It is very hard.
or if they're traveling, you know, somebody's traveling and that's really good pay.
Yep, I
Yeah.
guys like that too.
Well,
Yeah,
you gotta find someone who wants to move back to the community.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, they're
From the
getting tired
community
of
wants to move
traveling,
back to the
I
community.
get it, you know,
Another thing I'd recommend too is if you're looking to adding a new position, I'd maybe consider like at the soonest first week of January for a start date. We're already kind of in the November, we've got a lot of holidays coming up. Not that it's important this year, but you would have a lot of extended time off and paid holidays for a brand new employee, possibly. Yep. As well as where people are gonna maybe take some time off here and there maybe, so, yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Do I have a motion to add a full-time employee to the water department staff? Motion. Motion by Hamilton, second by Peterson. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Okay. We're on to 7E, discussion on the continued use of artificial fluoride in the city's water treatment process. So I know this has come up before and we've had some discussions and it looks like we have more information for further discussions. So I think Keegan, you were kind enough to share with us these average fluoride levels dating back from 2017 to 2024 for the last 7 years. And kind of where the city stands and how much we're adding and then also, I believe you had some additional information that we shared.
Yeah, so right off the bat, the 2017, the reason why we started there is because prior to 2017, the standard level or the recommended level by the CDC EPA was 1.0 milligrams per liter of parts per million. After 2017, they dropped it down to 0.7. So that's why this graph started there. We could have gone back to 2004 if we wanted to, but it wouldn't have mattered in the time. But yeah, having talked to quite a few people about fluoridation this week, especially the last 2 days, that 0.77 is in consideration with what's in your food, toothpaste, mouthwash, bottled water, like other things like that. So it's part of the recommended level. There are, I guess off the bat, I would just urge everybody to do their own research. I can have my own beliefs, but everybody should also do their due diligence. But the things that I found that even at the levels that we're producing in our system, there have been studies that have been very recently come out about the neurological health that fluoride can combat. So they say that those studies come from communities that have very high levels of fluoride, but the study actually covered ranges of communities that have less fluoride than we do. So we're still seeing that neurological damage in communities that have less fluoride than we do. I guess the other thing for me too is the bulk amount of fluoride that we have anyway. I mean, we hardly pump anything and our standard levels are pretty much right at that recommended level. But then the bulk tank that we have, given that the solution itself is so highly corrosive, it would be nice to get rid of that bulk tank and kind of just do away with the system, because then we no longer have to house that chemical.
We'd probably have to pay to get rid of it if we wanted rid of it, so.
So I talked to ACO, I think I had me email you guys,
Yeah.
but if there's any solution remaining, it's $200 to remove that solution, but they'll come and take away the tanks and their portion of the system for free. So that's why I kind of listed that. I think we have about 7 months left of fluoride. So if we wanted to wait that 7 months, just pump the rest of it and then they'll come get that tank and feed system. Just on their own dime. So at the very most, it would cost us $200 to get rid of that system.
And we're also gonna have to keep in mind, whoever the winners of this election,
They've already announced
this will be going away.
that it would be going away.
The national fluoride day.
Yeah, yeah.
So definitely appreciate the charts and it definitely helps me better understand. The raw fluoride that naturally occurs in our system has been very consistent to me over the last 7 years. And so, you know, obviously I can see how much you've been at, or how much has been added in different months, but, we're right there close, but again, to me, we're not in a hurry, right? So if we don't wanna pay to get rid of it, and then this is what we've been doing, this gives us more time to gather more information and see what's handed down, and allow any public to give us additional information, I guess, so that's, to me, it's good information, but let's, we're not in a hurry, I don't think.
So when we get a call about it, is there a place that I had a lady call me today. Is there a place where I can direct her to the information that we've gathered? So that, like Keegan says, she can do her own research on it?
Yeah, so we were actually talking about, what steps we would take to get some information out there to the public to make sure that we were providing those resources so that they have that opportunity to educate, themselves with all of the resources out there. And there will be plenty of resources probably coming in and being shared, and we've already had several requests to be, on future agendas. There's also a state code that we have to provide a 90-day notice before we can discontinue, so we have to take all of those steps ahead of discontinuing anyway, so there's plenty of time to do a board vote to be within that 90-day notice before you could actually take any action anyways. So there's definitely some time that could be used to benefit the community and getting that information out there, whether that's, sorry, go ahead.
Would we wanna have this then back on for discussion probably
January.
March?
Yeah, and I
We
think
have
it's,
7 months left?
About 7.
About 7.
I think
Sometime after
it's
January.
something that the board is really interested in pursuing and has interest in possibly discontinuing it. I think it would be beneficial to keep it on your meeting agendas to just bring updates, especially if we're looking at possible legislative changes at a federal level. That's something that we would want to have public discussions or opportunities for. And taking steps to make sure we get that information out there. So we want to share the information that Keegan's put together and about our system, and not just what's being circulated by other agencies or partners. We want to make sure that all of it gets out there, so we need to be proactive. And so I think we'd want to put it on at least once a month, I would say, on your agenda, so that we can provide updates and give public opportunity to provide that input, and then potentially put some links on our website, out on Facebook. Just some different avenues where we can share what Keegan's put together for our system specifically, where our natural fluoride levels are and what that means for the residents, and what artificial fluoride we're currently adding and what the impact would be, and just make sure that we've got all of that out there and transparent. Otherwise, I think we could be faced with some big challenges on.
Well, in the latest research that's coming up now versus, I mean, things change over 20 years. So 20 years ago, every dentist there, you know, you could go in a dentist office and they put fluoride on your teeth. I mean, that's where we were at. Well, nothing stays the same. We need to have more latest and the greatest research. So, and people need to read it for themselves, you know, I mean, don't take my word for it. Don't take Keegan's word for it, but have a place where they can find it themselves, you know?
And it's hard, I mean, it's a difficult spot, I think, just in general, because the EPA's limit is 0.4. We're at 0.55, and the ADA and the CDC have an optimal level of 0.7. I mean, you've got two federal guiding agencies, one of them an enforcement agency, giving you different guidelines. That's a tough spot to be in, and our natural levels fall right in the middle of that, so.
Yep.
I think that's the other thing too, that the Supreme Court decision that was made in California kicked it back to the EPA, and they're like, figure it out. Like, you guys need to evaluate this. This isn't, these numbers are way too high. and it's proven neurological damage, you know, and it wasn't just water, it was collective, it was all consuming, the one that I read was all consuming, so you're talking, like you said, you got your food, your toothpaste, your mouthwash, your dental cleanings and stuff that they do on teeth, and it's, you know, you just, I think if we pause it, I mean, we can bring it up and stuff, but if there's legislative changes, obviously we need to do something, and it's not gonna matter what people's opinions are, because we have to do with the EPA and, you know, if there's a federal ban on it, then that's it. There's nothing to discuss. So, but if we still need to do the 90-day thing, we're gonna know fairly soon, and so still by March, we use up everything, give or take.
By January.
I don't wanna buy anymore. Let's put it that way. Yeah, okay. Like if we can put a stalemate on buying anything more until we know what is gonna happen legislatively.
I mean, if we get to the point where we have to buy it to put it in, then we have to
Yeah.
do that, cause we have to stay
We
within
have to
that
stay
notice.
within it, right?
But like you said, I mean, we've got a high natural level.
Right.
And so when you factor that with all of the other sources that you're getting it, we're probably above that optimal level.
Currently, the filtration that we provide does not eliminate that level.
Right,
So the only thing that can actually kind of eliminate that fluoride level is reverse osmosis.
right, which is up to the homeowner, and there's a lot of people that put it in for removing it from city water.
Yeah.
You know, so that's where my stance is on it. That's the sole purpose for a lot of people to put it in, so.
Good discussion.
And just like a footnote for it is, so that the major study that came out for the California one, that study actually was supposed to come out in 2022. And it got blocked from being released because of the findings of that study. So now that study actually just came out at the National Toxicology Program used the Freedom of Information Act to get that report released this year.
Yeah.
So this study should have been released years ago. So it's.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The chair, this for longer, I think you guys are going in the right direction or something. I think you're slow on this way and getting information that you can weigh in and weigh out of it. So I think in a good direction. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Marty. Okay, well, again, the topic will be coming up in future meetings and as more information becomes available or legislation to discuss, we will, so. Okay. So, next item on the, or I guess 7F, department update. Keegan, do you have anything else?
Yeah, windows and desk got installed on the 23rd. We have finished flushing and we actually switched back to core means today. We took our final residuals out in the system last week and on Monday, and we found that the residuals had held and we kind of reached that disinfection level that we wanted to get to. So we're back to core means. First, like within an hour, free chlorine was out of the plant. So I would say by the end of this week, it should be totally back to normal in the system. So hopefully people's taste and odor issues subside. With that, we have switched over to wells 3 and 5. We haven't switched over to well 2 yet, just because there's a SCADA issue where, because well 2 produces so little water, there's a set point where it alarms if it produces less than 200 gallons per minute and it only produces 180. So I'm working with JV and Tri-City to see if we can come have and change that set point to the lowest set point, because we know that well just produces so little. So we're still doing we were on 3 and 4, now we're doing 3 and 5.
And high service pump number 2, is that?
It got fully reinstalled today and it's back online.
Excellent.
So they were here yesterday and we typically put full face gaskets in for the flange, but the space is so tight that using bottle jacks, we can't get enough space to get that gasket in there, so they had to go back to their shop to get a drop-in gasket. It's a paper gasket rather than a paper gasket. So they came back today and put that in and we're back online.
Okay, and that was with a new motor attached to that pump,
Yeah,
right?
that new motor, actually, the turnaround was pretty crazy. Like I ordered the motor on the 29th, and I think it was here by the 31st.
Excellent.
So it was like 2 or 3 days they could get that motor in, which is awesome.
Now, the old motor, is that in a
we
storage
have-
area that we can,
We have it in the garage, but it's in pieces
okay?
because Yonda didn't want to put it back together. So that was gonna be a discussion with you guys too, is what we want to do with that spare motor. If we want to leave it in pieces or just get rid of it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we can put that on for maybe the next agenda to discuss what to do with it. I know it's a vertical shaft motor, so it probably shouldn't be just left laying in pieces, so.
Well, so we still have a spare 25 horsepower motor.
Yeah.
Which we can put in place of any of those 30 horsepower motors, and we can switch the settings on the VFDs to be better used.
I mean, there's
So-
nothing much salvageable, like to do like a rebuild or part, you know, like,
That was the thing, it was
Yeah.
$2,500 to do the fix, so.
Yeah.
At that point, you're already halfway to buying another motor.
yeah, that's why we.
Well, my concern was, it was $2,600 for bearings and a balancing. Is there any opportunity to maybe find a different source and maybe pricing?
I don't remember if I talked to ISG about it, because they have hundreds of vendors that they work with. And they actually gave us some vendors on well maintenance other than Cohoy and Peerless. So I can definitely reach out to ISG and see if they have any other motor specialists that we can reach out to. It's just nice because Yonda is a 15-minute drive away.
Oh, I get it, but it's, you know, if somebody else can do it for, say, $1,000 less, we might wanna consider it for a spare, so.
Yeah.
If that opportunity exists, if it doesn't, well, then so be it, we can discuss what to do with that at that point. Okay.
I can definitely look into that. So we talked about with ISG getting our aerator looked at, because it hasn't been, I think it's been open in like close to 20 years, something like that. So Vesco was a company that they recommended. They actually came out last week. And one of their guys, we actually climbed up on top of the aerator, the tank, to take a look at the aerator, but it was like the windiest day of all time. So I told them, I was like, we're not climbing up there. We're not climbing all the way up there. So we didn't actually get to take a look inside, but they're gonna send me a quote on what it would take to get new baffles for that aerator. But then we'd have to coordinate with White Roofing, because we would need a crane to bring that aerator down from that tank. And then we'd also need a JLG with a man basket to be able to send somebody up there and hook that crane up. So there'll be a level of coordination that we need to take care of, which obviously will be a budget item. But I think it's not an immediate thing that we need to take care of, because we're obviously fully operational and our iron levels and our finished water are pretty much zero. So just future maintenance that we would keep in mind.
The GLG that was parked over by the Iowa Avenue Water Tower, was that on your guys' behalf, or was that with antennas or something, or not?
It's definitely not us.
No, okay.
So
I saw it out there and I didn't know if you guys were doing something or if it was then maybe one of the cell companies was
most likely.
servicing their equipment.
And do we always use White Roofing?
They're just
They're
another,
convenient.
they're just
For transformers that we can't set, that are too heavy even for our digger truck, so.
so they're just another one. They're right here in town. So
Yep.
it's kind of just easy to have them pop up.
Sure.
I don't know what a ballpark would be for them to take that aerator down. I'm sure it'd take them 30 minutes, but
On a calm day.
yeah.
Okay, any other-
Ever outside of that, I've got some contact information. I'll try to stay.
Yeah, I'll reach out to anyone that you can.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I know we like to keep things local. They're still fairly local. A lot of people from around here work for them too, but they're pretty reasonable, very reasonable.
Okay. Anything else, Keegan?
That should do it for me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keegan.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving on, number 8, administrative. A, consideration to approve resolution 2024-11 E&W fixing date for a meeting on authorization of a loan and disbursement agreement and the insurance not to exceed $150,000 water revenue capital loan notes of the city of Elbridge, Iowa, and providing publication and notice thereof. Nevada, do you have more information on this?
Yes, so this is just part of the documentation process for the P and D loan.
Okay.
This resolution needs approval from the board to set that public hearing date, which would, then go on your next utility meeting, which is the 19th, right?
Okay.
I think. So then it would be published in the next issue of the North Scott Press, so we would send that over yet this week, assuming that the term of the loan falls within the approval of the board. And then your next meeting will have an open public hearing that you will open and close during your meeting and take in any public comment about that loan. And then there will also be another resolution on that next meeting to be voted on directly after you close that public hearing to authorize the loan. So this is just that documentation process that we have to follow to be in compliance. And that's what the bond council is handling for us. So this would go, as long as you're moving forward with 5B, if that goes through, then this would have to go through as well. So it'd be kind of on that same contingency.
As long as it was 2 years or longer, then we would move forward with 8A.
Yes.
Any further discussion on that? Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
To approve, second? From Bedovich, second? Second by Peterson, and roll call.
Peterson. Here. Gooding.
Here.
Patovich.
Here.
Hamilton.
Here.
Brixley.
Aye. Okay. And let's see, number 8B. Discussion and consideration on utility administrative position and training plan. So, Nevada, are you able to share some of that information on that?
So this is the other staff, consideration that I had sent out as a proposal for moving forward in that new structure with having your superintendents. The administrative role for utility is very demanding, takes a lot of time, and, as we already discussed, it would put a pretty big burden on either one of the superintendents. But there is a lot of time, and energy and knowledge that goes into that. And so I know initially with going with those superintendent positions, the board was not looking at wanting to bring in, an outside general manager. And the likelihood of having someone that's certified in electric and water is not likely anyways. So looking at some of the possible solutions, right now I'm performing that administrative role. So we've talked about doing a contribution towards that salary. One of the other solutions I think that we've found that I think is a really stable and long-term sustaining plan is to take one of our internal staff that has that experience in both utility and electric, specifically on that administration side, and put them through this management training plan that I had sent out to you guys in that email. And that is actually something that I put together based on the training that I had when I was over in Davenport. They created a very similar plan, and I was one of their first staff to go through it, and I will credit it all day with my advancement from coming in as a assistant to the mayor to city administrator in a fairly short amount of time, and feeling prepared for that. It gave me knowledge of every department. I worked in every department. I got to know all of the department heads and how they all work together and how to take on different projects. And so that's what I proposed for the training plan for bringing an internal staff into an administrative management role that can take care of all of the compliance, the reporting, the budgeting, I wrote a list of some of the things, because there's, calculating the PCA, updating and reviewing policies and staying up to date with all of the legislative changes, and regulations for the electric and water. Handling leases and other contracts for both of those departments, working with your engineers and the long-term planning, all of the asset management, tax reporting, agendas and minutes, being your board liaison. It's a full-time job in and of itself. So creating that role for someone that's already here and has that knowledge, and taking the time to put them through a training plan that would get them involved with all of the departments, not just utility, but getting that overview of the entire organization and how it works together, and then concentrating specifically on utility after that. Plus throwing in some education components and giving them some opportunities to lead projects, throughout some of the projects that are currently pending in administration, for utility and city, I think will create some growth opportunity for your existing staff members, and then creating a path for them to move into administration when we have stable and adequate staff in the utility or the water and electric department. Should one of the superintendents decide that they want to get out of that field work, and want to do just administrative, then they would have someone who was specifically dedicated to utility management and administration that could devote the time to them that they need, rather than having someone, I mean, not to say that I'm not happy to do it. I'm happy to get everything that you need, but it's getting 60 or 70% to both you and the city council, because they're both very equally demanding positions to be able to support those governing bodies and make sure that we're staying on top of compliance and all of those budgeting issues and things like that. So it creates a more stable foundation, I think, for the electric and water, the utility department as a whole, but also for the organization as a whole, because as Keegan mentioned earlier with the water break, our team environment has changed in a positive way, and we want to keep that going, and everybody is working together, and we have a really robust and cross-functional department head team, and we want to keep that going, and I think we want to keep that moving into administration too, and setting it up for that long-term succession plan, that if we have someone internal who moves in into an administrative role when Jeff and I are gone, and they're already familiar with your utility department and have worked close with your utility manager, I think it just creates that continuity and makes that transition a lot more seamless.
And so during the training period for this, would the person's position title change at that point, or are we looking at creating a new position for the training?
I think at the direction of the board, it could really go either way. I think you're already in that manager role. You're just kind of in that training. You're not fully out independent yet, because they'd be working closely with the administration and the other department heads, but they would also be working closely with whoever that person that was going to be doing the utility billing, getting them trained and ready to go, learning that role. And so it'd be, we have a big team environment here at City Hall too, where the city administration, the clerk, and all of the clerk's office staff work together and help each other out with the different job duties. And so it'd be I think a presence between both of those positions. But you being able to devote that time to really have that manager training, and being ready to just be independent. But I mean, of course, your administrative team on the city side is still always there. And then you've got the clerks working together and having that resource in an administrative manager as well.
I think part of what the question that you asked was, does that title change? And I guess I would maybe look at it as like the military does, rank advancement. You earn that title, but you don't officially have it until that training is completed.
And I'm aligned with what you're thinking, or, you know, with that, and I guess that's why initially I'm concerned if we hang a manager title on while we're still training, that might put an undue target on someone, and I just, for me, I wanna, you know, be as assured as possible, you know, for success all the way through this, and, you know, so yeah, that's why I just want more information, if they would keep their same title, or, is there something between what they're doing now and a manager title that would be better suited, or I am open to discussion on this, it's.
I mean, I would think at this time, in my opinion, it'd be more of a executive assistant administrator.
Coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, I don't wanna say assistant coordinator, you can call it that, but to the two heads of these departments for the time being.
Utility coordinator, and then, you know, the eye on the prize is gonna be the manager role upon completion of the training, but, you know, just to, as a stepping stone to get there, you know, that might keep, you know, and I know, you know, Nevada and Jeff are gonna still play a large role in this until such time as.
But I think we wanna make sure that the person going into this role, again, you're gonna give a manager title, there's gonna be some feedback, like, this person hasn't, we're trying to avoid that, number one. I think we all have faith in putting someone in this position, but making sure, like, we're doing it the right way to protect the utility board, the employee being put in that position, everybody at a whole, just making it all encompassing.
Well, and again, back to financially, like budgetary wise, like, do we do like a step up, like when you guys get like a certification, we step them up, and so like as we progress and stuff, we don't just slide somebody into a larger pay raise when we can't prove that, like, you know, we can slowly step up somebody in the, you know, for pay per performance type of situation.
Yeah, so, and I think, along the lines of wages, there's kind of like a starting off wage, and then it moves into something that's more comparable. I think I provided a couple of job descriptions. I don't think I provided them all out here, but, it would be more similar to what the previous structure used to be, where there was, administrative support from the city administrator. But there was also management for administration on the utility side of getting all of that compliance and reporting done, because right now, I mean, one way, at some point somehow with the structure, there will have to be some sort of administrative role that is formally approved by the utility board, whatever that is, whether it's to continue using the city administration, or whether it's to put someone in that role, but the administrative work for the utility is a full job. It's, I mean, it's part of the job, but I mean, it's 60 hours plus a week when you're doing it with council. I mean, it's a big job. And so that's where I say you're getting 70% maybe, because that's a lot of time and hours to be trying to continuously produce for two authorizing governing bodies. And so looking at trying to create a stable environment where we've got a full administrative team that can provide that support to all of those governing bodies, but also putting them that role in alignment with the job duties that it is. I mean, that wage has to reflect the work and the time that goes into that, but also be able to be justified when people ask about it. So it's comparable to where those other superintendent roles are, or those other supervisory or management roles in the department are, because the three of them would then work as a solid team, with two of them performing those specialized operations and supervision of those tasks and those personnel, and then someone else doing all of that administrative and budget work and being able to fully commit their time and attention to those tasks.
And I think, for me, again, it goes back to the job title and making sure we're clear on positions. Like when I think of a general manager for utility department or the manager, however you want to word it, like, that's somebody that oversees facilities, and that means in all aspects, like what Colin and Keegan are doing and knowing those things too. So that's why using that word manager of that, again, I know we've got some updates to this, but like, that's where I think where the duties, or if other people looking in from the outside of that, may cross the line in that area.
Well, if you changed it to administrative manager, like. There.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot different than, I would say, like, general manager, the manager of the department as a whole.
It's definitely a different position than what the most recent general manager position was defined as. It is a little closer to what the previous general manager was, but I think that was, I mean, the title that makes it, I mean, he was also certified in water, Dan, or electric.
Dan had both.
Yeah.
didn't he?
Yeah, so, I mean, he did have that operational level too, but I think looking at that different structure here where we've got those supervisors and essentially those managers in each of those departments, it changes that structure of what that administrative managerial role looks like, but it's still a very necessary and very demanding and skilled role that
Sure.
you want to have someone that's knowledgeable in those areas and experienced.
Yeah, and I just, like I said, I just didn't wanna, hinder any of the training by, prematurely hanging a target on somebody's back. Oh, this person's in charge and, for both water and electric and that's, at some point, they'll reach that point. Or they'll achieve that, say, managerial role, as general manager of both, but, I just wanted to, if it's administrative, and I don't necessarily wanna reinvent the wheel either. I mean, if we've got other position and job descriptions that closely fit, I would be open to that. Now, how soon would we have to backfill the position if there was a new title?
As far as the billing,
Yes.
I think we'd have to see what the work, we're going through transition on the clerk side too, to get aligning some of those duties that some of our clerks out there have taken over. So I think we need to get a little more of a solid idea on what each of their roles are. I don't know that it would be something we would need to fill right away, because I think we could accomplish that training plan and still be able to get those operational tasks done, because you're still gonna have Jeff and I there, making sure that operationally the tasks are getting done. And we're still gonna have all of the same clerks in the office that are aware of how to do all of those tasks. So I don't think there's a imminent need to backfill that position. I think we wanna focus more on figuring out where we stand as a staff at that point. Because we do have our new finance manager on, and we did just hire a new utility billing clerk, and that's going very well. So I think, we wouldn't be looking at immediate, I would say probably before we would know really what position we were in and whether maybe that's even part-time. It's not really easy to say right now, but I would say we would have some time before we would need to know what backfilling that position would look like. But for the sake of budgetary purposes, I've included that additional full-time person in there as well, to see where we would really be at if we brought on another journeyman and had another water department employee and had a superintendent position in there. And I still kept in that projection, a contribution to the clerk and the administrator with an administrative manager, which obviously if you had an administrative manager, you wouldn't need to contribute to the administration role. So, definitely a lot of extra padding in that projection to make sure that it's feasible and realistic with your current budget to be able to provide that kind of staffing support and I think, even putting all of those roles in there, you still have room in that budget to be able to.
Sure. Okay. So the consideration is the, on naming, I guess, a utility administrative position. Is there? I mean, is there any further discussion on what that title would be, or?
Or what other information you want
Yeah,
provided, or what changes to the job description, if there's something, I know you said looking at other job descriptions that would mirror it, some feedback on what the administrative manager job description, what you would like to see taken out of that or changed.
I think if we could maybe table that, let us look at all that stuff that got sent to us, you know, marinate on it a little bit and then.
Cause then we would make some changes to it, you know, and then.
Right,
okay,
I mean, I'm good with just for like another meeting, give us some time and stuff, and I know Mark's new to the board, so I'm gonna throw him under the bus for all the new
Yeah.
information. You
Mark's
know,
fault.
it's Mark's fault.
Then again, we want to set the person up for success.
That's
not
right.
failure, so we're
Right.
gonna have
Yeah,
all of this information.
it's not that we don't think that it's not necessary.
No, we do think it's necessary.
yes,
When this person needs advancement, is that gonna be up to you? Is she gonna have to require, or he gonna have to require X amount be accomplished, or what they can do before they get an advancement in pay, or?
Well, that's something I think we need to like set up as we're doing this.
Well, I'm
I mean, we were
just asking so
provided-
that we're-
yeah.
everybody's on the same page, because that person, you know, we all work to advance as high as we can.
Mhm.
So, I mean, who's gonna determine that is what I'm asking.
So the way the organization is currently set up and the way that, I mean, that it's been done, I guess, in the past is, and the plan that I proposed would be getting through that 6 month, going through all of those, different levels of training. And then it would be essentially that kind of, for lack of a better word, performance review, like we do with all of our department heads to determine, I mean, it's gonna reflect poorly on me if I don't build a strong team. I'm committed to building a strong team so that I can take some of that load off of my job duties, so that have a chance to, you know, step away and have a work-life balance too. So I'm,
Absolutely, and I was just asking because,
Yeah.
well, for like Colin, you serve an apprenticeship, you know your advancements. Keegan, he's taken his test, he knows his advancements. So my point would be, how is she or he gonna know their advancements and where they need to kind of shoot for, and how they need to, stick their nose to the grindstone basically and perform, so.
Yeah. And so I guess in just in my mind, it's going through that whole plan. And in that plan, there's some very specific, and that's still just a draft, and I would intend to add different projects, and definitely, we've only got a snippet of what that education would look like, because we don't know, you know, what's gonna come up that we can be involved in, but successfully leading those projects that we put them on, if we're seeing struggles or not being able to complete those projects, and that's gonna be an indicator that they're not ready to be in an independent management role yet. And so, I mean, I think that target goal and it's achievable at that 6 months, but if we get there and it's not, or along the way, it's not working out, or it's for anyone involved, I think, we reevaluate it at that point, but we certainly are going to make sure that we've reached those goals and we are confident in all of those skills being learned before we.
Okay.
And I would say
truly
too,
separate that.
I mean, I'm gonna use Keegan as an example right now, because he's always breaking in here with his latest and greatest certificate. But I mean, I think, and in my experience too, like being in a leadership, management type roles, any of that, like you also take it upon yourself personally, I mean, you do find classes, that type of stuff to add additional education. Like you'll see that position, that person, he or she growing in that and taking the lead, and as Nevada just said, if they're lacking.
That's what it said.
In a certain area.
Was the grindstone.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we gotta consider, we're fortunate that we have Nevada as a resource because she's been through it. And so, you know, she can take the good and the bad from what she's experienced personally and make it better.
And when you talk about like the projects that are coming out too, like when we get the ISG report back, then we can kind of map some of that, like off of that too, for training purposes, like, okay, what can we see, what can we help with, and like, where can this person, whoever it may be, grow and learn and see how they do with those, because as of now, and we've got a few things, but like, we don't really have a real good roadmap until that report comes back.
Yeah, and I fully intend in those 6 months that the projects that they are in charge of and executing those plans for are not going to be strictly to utility, because we need a comprehensive management administrative training to be able, because it's gonna be really important to see the organization as a whole and all of the departments, not just strictly to utility, because we wanna make sure that everybody knows how their management, their decisions are gonna impact those other departments. So it'll be really important to have that experience and that project opportunity in all of the different departments.
So that training that we talked about last night at the meeting of the whole, like, would, you know, that person also be included in that training as well with like Allison and stuff, going through all that stuff?
Yeah, yep. I mean, I've got a list of identified projects already, some of them utility related and some of them not. There would be days spent specifically with each department and each department head going out into the field with them, doing different exercises with PD. They've got a lot of training exercises, going out on ride-alongs there, spending time with the sewer department in that office and just knowing how those operations go day to day. Same with the water, the streets, the parks. Time with both Jeff and I, because we perform different roles in economic development projects that are currently, I mean, we've got a lot of things that are just kind of pending that could be a great opportunity for moving some of those projects forward that are sitting there because we just simply don't have enough time. But we identify those individuals in our staff that we have confidence in, and we know that they can execute those plans and those projects. And when you have identified that staff and they're very valuable, you want to make sure that you develop them and you keep them here. And so some of it is us asking for trust too, that, I mean, we're working in here every day. We work with these staff and these employees, and, you know, if recommendations or, proposals come forward, just that there's been a lot of research and a lot of time and experience with, those individuals and those staff to know that this is, I'm not gonna bring you something that I don't think is gonna be a success, and I have 100% confidence in. Not that that means that, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not my decision, it's not up to me, but I would say 100 times over that I've got 100% confidence in this plan.
So with what you just said, would this admin position be 100% utility based, or would it be spread out amongst other departments too?
Once that training period is over and that it's fully just that independent administrative management role, then it would be dedicated to utility. That's the purpose of, yeah, this role is to be that administrative person for the utility that handles all of that compliance and legislation and all of the communications that the water and electric department need with engineers and things, because, you know, they don't have that time, they're not at their desk all day. So taking care of whatever it is that they need, they get questions that come in sometimes and they've got to come in and, you know, that's where administration is there to support them and make sure that they can work all day and support their teams. And we'll take care of that, the administrative stuff, and make sure that they're set up and they don't have to worry about that. When they're out handling an emergency, your administrative manager is gonna be the one contacting the community, the boards, the council members, different agencies, because these guys need to be out fully directing their attention to their staff to make sure that all of their employees go home safe at the end of the day. And so we need somebody here that is the point of contact to be able to communicate on their behalf and make sure that we're keeping people informed and make sure we're in compliance with the law and that we've got policies in place to make sure things have oversight and run efficiently
Mhm.
and safely.
I think it's a great plan and, you know, looking at what was proposed, you know, the plan itself looks great, but, we still want to table then, I guess, the title, what we're gonna,
Yeah, I might
Job
look at the job
description.
description too some more and just double check
Okay.
that again.
okay.
I mean, if there's a motion, no name.
So motion to table, the consideration on utility administrative position. By your motion,
Motion.
motion by Peterson, second
Second.
by Patovich. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye,
Okay.
nays, ayes have it.
Like, we'll be ready by then, I think.
Yeah, because we've gotten some information.
Yeah.
Just, yeah, that'll work
Give
good.
us a. slap that.
We're almost there, just,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, next item, 8C. Discussion consideration to adopt utility billing policy and procedures. Do you have some information on that?
There is a draft in your packet. I wouldn't say it's ready for consideration yet unless, you guys are solid with it, but I think that there's some things that we could use some, input from Keegan on. I know Sadie's been working on, a lot of the information that's in here to make sure that it's accurate. And then, looking at different things that we might need to put in here. I know we talked about second meters. Keegan has brought that up to Sadie and what the responsibility would be for, the purchase of and maintenance of a second meter. Unclaimed deposits is another one that currently we have them and we just sit on them if we can't find someone to return them to. Is that correct?
Right.
And then the write-off period, we had discussed that before, but how long with old debt before we would write it off? If we're not going to do liens and things. And I know there's, some third-party collection information that we have to, that can be included in here if we want to look at something outside of the offset program. What was the name of the company?
Municipal collection from America.
So that, yeah, municipal collections of America. Yep. That is what, some of the other municipalities are currently using as another third-party collection. So Stevie's got a lot of notes on that we can provide out, to get a final draft of this policy ready. But I wanted to get something in front of you to kind of look at and review. There's not a huge rush, but we run into things every so often that we don't have a policy in place to enforce, and so we need to get something in place to be able to go after, bad debt or know how to handle that. And when someone wants to put an account in their name, and it's delinquent, and the person that has the delinquent account also lives there, we've had that come up. So different things like that we just don't have anything in place to really enforce or take forward, so it's not extremely urgent, but it's definitely time to get those processes in place. So just a kind of a starter draft for you guys to look at, and we can, get some feedback from Keegan on whether, I don't know if backflow prevention would fit into a billing policy and procedure. It potentially could for installing it but
Yeah, I mean, every municipal I've talked to, they kind of just geared towards requiring that backflow prevention as far as a commercial and industrial rather than residential. So they kind of just don't even go into the realm of requiring residents to have it. But if you do have it, we are gonna require you to test it, and so that may be a portion of it.
yeah, pool or irrigation.
Yeah, pool and irrigation is supposed to have it,
Mhm.
it's direct
So
access.
that's,
There's some compliance with that.
and I've been talking to every irrigation and plumbing company that does RPZ testing in town, and I've actually had them forwarding all the backflow prevention tests to the state DNR,
Mhm.
so.
Okay. And does everybody want motion to
Yeah.
table, motion by Patovich to table? And by our second by Peterson, all in favor, say aye.
Right.
Aye. And nays, ayes have it.
Otherwise, bring this back, because if we have to add stuff, if you want to look through it.
Yep. Sounds good.
Then you guys can look at it too, and see if there's, any policies or processes that you want to update or questions about, or it just doesn't look right.
Can you send us that information on that,
The third party.
third party?
Yep.
Yeah, so that way we know, like, what are their fees and everything, you know, like. And I mean, once we have that in place, can we use that? If, say we adopt that, can we use it to go back after the ones that we were already delinquent on? Or is that like from this point on?
It is passed, so they would take over everything, like our set-off program, we wouldn't have to do, they take care of that. They would find social security numbers and addresses that we don't have. There is a late fee that we could add going forward, not to past ones, that would cover the percentage that they charge us. So then at that point, it would be,
That might be beneficial for us to look into then.
And do they actually buy the debt or do they pay once they've collected on the debt?
They collected that and then give us a portion back, or?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I
okay,
think it's when they collect the debt, then they take the 25% and then we get the rest.
gotcha.
Just because of that.
Okay, moving on, 8B, any further department updates?
Not a lot. We've been working on the lead notifications that need to go out with 120 water, so Keegan's been, verifying a lot of addresses for, sending out anything that's either unknown or galvanized lead, if we don't have any. Those will be going out within the next week.
I thought they were gonna go out this week, but we've run into a few issues with this, our data collection, so we're working with 120 water and trying to get that solved, so hopefully they'll go out in the next couple of weeks.
And the only other thing would, is I have talked to the, state of Iowa Treasurer's Office a couple of times, as far as investments and what is allowable under the state code, because there's some conflicting provisions in there, as far as what securities are allowed, so she wanted to research that a little bit so the state comes up with on their code and they'll let us know. But regardless, then we can get that investment policy together and I can get a draft out to you. And then from there, you would be able to take a next step as far as if we need to add any depositories that would need approval. So just those final steps to being able to move forward with any investment. The other part to that would be considering what projects you would want to invest for, because we have to define what that investment is used specifically for. Electric, I don't know that we have any room that we could justify the investments for, because they have healthy reserves. But water could definitely benefit from investment, and we definitely will have a number of projects that we can absolutely define for those investments going forward, so. Be ready to
Good, thank you for that.
get those moving.
Anything else? Okay. Well, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Motion by Patovich, second by Peterson, all in favor, say aye. All right. Thank you.
Right, so I got, there was needed.
Oh,
Next time.
yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens when the other fees, maybe we'll have to work it out.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Data, he did call, I talked to Paul, he said, kind of got a nice new deal for you now.
Yes, so he thinks that they should review it, but they're gonna